Well, thank you so much, Leanne. And as promised, we obviously are going to that interview now. The chairperson of the State Capture Inquiry, Judge Raymond Zondo, yesterday dismissed the recusal application filed by former President Jacob Zuma. Zuma had wanted Zondo to recuse himself, citing bias. But shortly after Zondo made his ruling, Zuma and his legal team then walked out of the inquiry without permission. And in his judgment, the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo said that the former statesman had failed to prove bias. He also dismissed Zuma's legal representative submission that certain witnesses were called to testify in a bid to create a narrative that the former president is, quote, the one who messed up the country, unquote. Rehana Khan Parker, Director of RKP Attorneys, joins us now to discuss some of these developments. Rehana, good morning. Thanks for being with us on Morning Live.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Now, former President Zuma and his legal representative, Advocate Moses Kakane, left the commission yesterday and without permission, as the Chief Justice said when they came back from that recess. Now, was the former president, in your view, acting unlawfully when he did this?
Well, it's now almost, one would like to look at as a trial within a trial. The recusal of the state capture inquiry by Judge Raymond Zondo that he was not biased and therefore dismissed the application. And Zuma, of course, failed to satisfy all the legal requirements for bias, as you've just alluded to. And then an interesting development happens. The legal team for Mr. Zuma then states that they are going to apply for a review on the matter, and that they are going to be leading, and that they would be reporting the non-recusal of Judge Zondo to the Judicial Services Commission. And it's at that stage where there's a lot of talk and a lot of tweets for the entire of last night. The question is whether Mr. Zuma had permission to leave. And there goes the debate. The debate then goes to and fro between the legal team for Mr. Zuma saying, we informed the court, the commission, the chairperson, that we are leaving. And on the other hand, the legal team for the commissioner saying, but Mr. Zuma did not have permission to leave. And that is where the analysis will start to be unfolding. There are cardinal issues here, and the cardinal issues are that we pride ourselves of being a democracy, of everyone has the right to a fair trial and a fair inquiry, and secondly, that the independence of the judiciary is crucial. And when there is any doubt that there might be a hint of impartiality by a commissioner, in this case, the chairperson, or a judge, that a judge recuses him or herself. Though that's a cardinal point. And of course, the argument went to and fro as to whether Mr. Zuma and the chairperson were friends or not, or acquaintances, or whether, in fact, Mr. Zuma played a part in the appointment of the chairperson. Those were the innuendos, and those were the statements that were going to and fro between the legal teams. And in my personal view, when it gets to that, then I believe that Judge Zondo and his legal team should have thought twice. They know that Mr. Zuma is going to play this to the ultimate, will use every letter and page in the book to delay the process. And we also know that Zuma's legal team knew that Zondo was the chairperson for almost 3 years today. Why raise it now? Very artfully raised at a late stage in the proceedings. It's typical that when you have very little to go on, you will find avenues to get out of a hearing. So in my view, on the other hand, Mr. Zuma had to be excused by Judge Zondo. We have procedures and policies in place as to how witnesses who are appearing before commissions and in court are excused. And in accordance with the legal team for the chairperson, Mr. Zuma was not excused. And the Commissions Act of 1947, which has been amended by the General Amendment Act, and there are regulations, in fact gives the Commission some teeth. They're not a court of law. That powers of whether to prosecute Mr. Zuma for allegedly walking out of a hearing or not lies with the National Prosecuting Authority. But Section 5, Section 6 of the Commissions Act gives the Commission the avenue to proceed with redress on that score. But I can foresee prolonged litigation in this, and in the interest of what is happening in the country, with the amount of corruption that we are seeing unfolding, and the delaying tactics and the prolonged processes that we will have to go into in terms of investigations and who said what and who did what, is just but another prolonged protracted litigation. Justice died. Again, we're sitting with a situation where the wheels of justice turn so slowly, and the chairperson must act swiftly and decisively in this matter.
Okay, with regard to that, Rehana, because we're running out of time, firstly, when you say the chairperson should act swiftly and decisively, on what score? Because Jacob Zuma's legal representative did mention to the chairperson that they would leave when he was making the submission in which he stated that they would be laying a charge against the DCJ with the Judicial Service Commission. So what should he act upon? And given that they did say they would leave and they subsequently did leave, can Zuma face charges for having left? Because when the DCJ came back as chairperson of that commission from that break, he said they left without permission. But they had told him, they had warned him that they would leave. So what does this mean? Is there any clarity as to whether there will be charges against the former president because he left without permission? And secondly, just a bit of clarity with regard to the charge that will be laid against the DCJ. Is that because he refused to recuse himself, or is that to do with the merits of the application that was brought, or rather the response to what the DCJ had said regarding his friendship or non-friendship with Jacob Zuma?
Yes, well, it's difficult to say because I was not there at the hearing. I'm just getting the information from the clips that I'm seeing and from messages as well as in the media. However, what I'm saying with regard to the judge, Zondo will have to act swiftly and decisively. And I'm sure his legal team sat the entire night debating the very issue as to whether Mr. Zuma was excused and whether Mr. Zuma's legal team was excused, or whether both were excused or not. That is something which will require an internal debate and caucusing with the legal team. However, if it is so that Mr. Zuma and or his legal team were not excused, then Mr. Zondo, Judge Zondo, must act decisively. Look at his powers that he has and use those powers in the interest of justice. On the other hand, whether the legal team for Mr. Zuma will lay a complaint to the Judicial Services Commission remains to be seen. But I do believe they will do that. They've hinted at it for some time now. And whether it is as a result of comments made by the chairperson, or whether it is because of the friendship or the non-friendship or the appointment of the chairperson, that remains to be seen. I would not be able to answer you on that.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. It is 7 o'clock. But thanks so much to Rehana Khan Parker, Director of RKP Attorneys, for talking to us about former President Jacob Zuma. And with that, it's time for your latest news here.